Kate Fennessy is writing her first novel.
And Helen Brown's going to help her.
Welcome to our podcast, Novel Therapy.
How to make life your best creative project.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 17 of Novel Therapy. I'm Kate Fennessy, aspiring author and social media marketer.
And I'm Helen Brown, New York Times bestselling author. And we've got a very special guest. I'm so excited.
We do have a special guest. I'm going to introduce you, Bradley. So we have Bradley Slabe with us today. And Bradley and I met at the Stellar Short Film Festival earlier this year, which seems like a lifetime ago, pre-corona. It really does. Bradley's film, Lost and Found, which he co-directed with Andrew Goldsmith, won it was the best screenplay at Stellar. And that is not the only award it has won. But that is where I met Bradley. So we had a chat there and talked about a few things, and I keenly tried to line him up for this podcast. So welcome, Bradley, and thank you so much for giving us your time.
No, thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah.
And look, I believe this wonderful film of yours was shortlisted for an Oscar as well, Bradley. Is that right?
Yeah.
That is incredible.
Thank you very much. It was kind of strange to be on that list with kind of companies you look up to for so long, like being direct competition with Pixar. It was a place that we never expected to be, and yeah, very great experience to kind of do that whole crazy Oscars campaign thing. Yeah.
So you're elevating our podcast just by being here, an Oscar nominee on our Novel Therapy podcast. We're very excited.
Shortlisted,
whatever. That's details.
If everyone wants to take that as a nominee. Yeah, details.
Exactly. Whatever. Oscar is the important word. But we have lots of questions we'd love to ask. So one of the first ones Helen and I were both interested in is just simply your background. Helen, you wanted to know, like, actually his background, as in, tell us a bit about where you grew up.
Yeah, that's what I'd like to know, because you're a very unusual individual. I scoured the internet to find out about you, and it was actually very difficult. I think you must be ultra cool to keep so much a secret. So are you in Melbourne?
I was born in Johannesburg in South Africa, and then I moved to Melbourne when I was 9. Did most of my growing up in Melbourne, and then I moved to Sydney for about 5-6 years to study film, and it took me a long time to figure out that's what I wanted to do. I think there was a year in between there that I'd taken off that I think I was looking up marine biology courses. I just wasn't sure how to kind of make a career out of screenwriting, and one of my lecturers at the time, she's now the CEO of Actors, but she was taking the master's program, and we had a coffee, and she said, do this program, I think it'll be good for you. We kind of go in at a different angle, and that's actually the year that I'd written Lost and Found under her guidance. So she was incredibly supportive and helpful. Nell Greenwood, yeah.
And where did the idea for that very heart-rending, I watched it again this morning and was in tears again. There's a lot of deep pain behind that story, even though it's only, 8 minutes long.
With most of my writing, it usually, I'm not sure if it's because I'm such a Pixar fanatic, but most of it just starts off with a high concept. And so I'd had this idea about a doll unraveling itself I didn't have the reason. And initially it was about unraveling to, like, set in an alleyway where I was going to unravel itself to try and find its owner. But I'd gone through various iterations, and that's when I think I was 25 at the time, and I'd fallen into my first relationship. I think naturally, kind of the life you're living kind of feeds into your writing. Obviously, Helen, you'd understand, and so naturally it starts to become about a relationship, and it starts to become unraveling. How much of yourself do you unravel? If it's someone that you care about, and how much is too much, or do you kind of just go unapologetically? And so I mean, while making the film was, because it was about a 3 to 4 year process, I'd actually gone through two two entirely significant relationships.
Right.
So two loves, two heartbreaks.
Yep.
And the ending, the tone of the ending, my co-director and I kept getting into squabbles because he was just like, look, they're both good, but you've got to pick one. But on one side, I was like, yeah, yay, love, that's awesome. Let's have uplifting music. It's going to be hopeful. And then I'd have a break, and I was like, no, it's not. You know, love isn't the most important thing. You have to take care of yourself and you somber music. And that it took a really long time. That very last shot, I won't kind of give any spoilers away for your listeners, but it was a really tightrope to balance to not kind of answer the question that I had an answer for, but my co-director had a different answer for.
Can we ask what your answer is?
Or
is that being to me?
Yeah. No, I'm happy to say my answer. So the film's been online for, I think, over a year now. So I'm happy to kind of say, for me, okay, so this is the way I'm going to answer it. So I don't think that the dinosaur is able to be crocheted back together. I think in the same way that a relationship that's broken, my psychologist had given me this metaphor, it could have been my brother, but you can break apart a bicycle so many times that once it's so many pieces that you can't actually put it together the same way that it was. And for me, that there's no way that the dinosaur would be able to put back together in the same way that the relationship would be the same. So I took kind of reassurance that it didn't matter whether or not the fox was able to put the dinosaur back together, because the fox doesn't know, and yet she still stays on that counter trying again and again and again. I think that was the important message to send across. So the dinosaur kind of gave himself entirely in a physical sense, and the fox was willing to sacrifice her entire self in a temporal sense. And so because the fox doesn't know, that says more about the character motivation, I think, without kind of her doing it just because she knows that there's a reward for her around the corner.
Yeah, it's purpose. It gives the fox purpose.
If I was in that sushi bar with the fox, I would say, honey, no, it's done. You know what I mean? You need to kind of move on.
See, that kills me, because the optimist in me is like, fox, keep going. You've got this.
A bit of a freeze, yeah.
I think we had a bit of a freeze, hopefully. Yes. Just a word of warning to our listeners. We're going to experience some glitches because of the internet gods. Bradley is currently frozen, looking very thoughtful on video, but hopefully we'll get through it without too much trouble. But yeah, I think
I would really, our listeners really need to download this beautiful little film. Yes. It's only 8 minutes. It's perfect Corona watching. And it's a story of, I actually misinterpreted it as, I thought it was friendship, but it's, of course, deep love as well. Loyalty, sacrifice, even heroism. There are some wonderful themes in there. And it's a very good time to be reminded of those deep themes.
I'm just messaging Bradley because he's frozen. Good, but he's frozen at the moment, so we'll just have to wait till he rejoins us. The internet gods are very playful. They're also a little bit tricky. So they've zapped him for the time being, but hopefully he will revive in any minute now. But while he's frozen, yes, Helen's right. I think we'll put a link to Lost and Found, the short film we're talking about, in our group. It is absolutely beautiful and emotional and just incredibly done. Now, how are we going? Both of you are frozen at the moment on my video. Helen, you're okay. Bradley, can we hear you? I think we've lost Bradley for a short little moment. That's really sad.
I keep thinking of this when you say, let it go, let it go.
Oh, here we go. Bradley's being admitted back in. This is how we have to roll. We just have to roll with the technology. The good thing is on the video, he's been frozen in such a nice pose, so he can feel good about that. Because sometimes when you're frozen, it can get you in an unfortunate pose, you know. We have two Bradleys in our video. Thank you.
That's bizarre. Okay.
Bradley, the good news is Okay, he's going to get rid of his other person. You're two people now. This is incredible. We have two Bradleys on the screen. One is thoughtful and pensive.
There he
The other
is.
one. So I'm,
Yeah, that's so-
oh, there we go.
There we go.
There we are.
I was just taking the opportunity to explain to our listeners that glitches will happen. That's unfortunately the era we're in, the little sub-era of internet glitches. But we were just praising Lost and Found and telling our listeners, we'll pop a link into it in our Facebook group. It is so beautiful. It's moving. It's just, it's been done so. It's a good mixture. Like for me as a reader and a content watcher, I love it when that balance of beautiful storytelling happens with, it's beautifully made in the case of a film. Like it's visually beautiful, but it's also a beautiful story. And when the two combine, it doesn't always happen. It makes it very memorable. It was definitely my favourite film. I voted for you at the film festival at Stella, so I'm not surprised you won a prize. No, it was beautiful.
I should kind of send a congrats to my crew. I was incredibly lucky to have a generous and talented crew. We've got so much talent in Melbourne. I mean, our art director, Rennie Watson, and our lighter, Gerald Thompson, who does the cinematography and motion control for Adam Elliott's work.
Right.
And then my coder, obviously Andrew Goldsmith, he comes from a commercial and VFX background, but he knows his craft, and he's quite a perfectionist when it comes to the aesthetic, which is why I think everything came so sharp. So I give credit to him for making it look so schmick. Yeah, I was very happy.
Well, you should be.
Hey, Bradley, how are you being affected? I'd love to hear how you're being affected by the current, social distancing. Is it affecting your own personal creativity?
For career-wise and creativity-wise, no, my life hasn't actually changed too much because I'm on deadlines at the moment. I'm working on a couple of new projects, and so I'd kind of be on lockdown in the house in any case. Where it has affected me, I went to go, my mother is over 65 and she's got an autoimmune, and so I can't see her, and so I need to collect something from the house, and it was kind of strange where you kind of just, I'm watching my mum from just standing at the door while I'm pulling things in the car, and I'm feeling kind of that distancing difficulty. But in terms of an introvert and a writer, I'm still I'm living my best life at the moment, and it's a strange thing to say. I don't know how many people have been so affected by it, but I think as a writer, not someone in film because so many productions have been shut down, but I've had a couple of Australian companies approach me for animation content now because it's one of the very few things that can still be made because the crews are so small and backward. And so, so it's one of those things that I think I've benefited from it, which is a really awful thing to say. But for all intents and purposes, I haven't been affected too badly.
And there's a great hunger for content now, isn't there? With all Netflix and Amazon, all these channels.
Yeah, well, in a month I think we'll be seeing a whole lot of speculation scripts.
Do you reckon?
Now all those scripts that writers didn't have time to write now are writing them. I think.
Do you know what I read recently? You'll love this, Helen. I read that there's been an influx of erotica fiction around the coronavirus. Like people are writing and self-publishing erotic fiction or romance fiction. It's apparently booming. Because they were explaining that the normal scenario with the plumber visiting and an unexpected romance happening has to be rewritten. It's different.
That's so funny.
So watch out for that.
So funny. Oh my god. That's I can imagine a lot of isolation horrors as well. Like everything that's what can happen when you're stuck at home.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I was talking to one of my publishers about this at the moment and saying, is the coronavirus bringing out a whole lot of great coronavirus novels? And she said, 4 million of them, and they're all terribly written.
I know someone from
What are you working on?
someone.
What are you
Right
working
now, I've got an adult animated series that I was lucky enough to get funding from Scripted Inc. And the contract's now official and everything. So I've started writing that yesterday, and it's one of those things where you kind of write a pitch for a project, and it's exciting, and it's promising all these things, and then someone gives you to do, and you're like, oh, I've actually got to kind of now
it's real.
come through with it. I feel like it's the equivalent of kind of fudging a resume and then getting the job and going, all right, now I actually have to do all those things I promised. But I'm having fun with it, and it's a very personal story. Then I'm also
Can you give us an idea? Yeah.
Yeah.
What's about?
Yeah, of course. It's a very, it's going to sound strange after I say it's a very personal project, but it's about this kind of down and out character who's also Satan, and it's about him kind of taking accountability for things that have really upset him. So it's not this kind of big buff Satan, it's like this scrawny Satan. He's got rings under his eyes, and he's struggling with his job, and he can't quit because he signed a contract for eternity, but he hates that everyone hates him. And so
I love it.
Essentially the devil trying to find a sense of self-love, and it's set in this world where heaven and hell are creative tech startups, and he used to be housemates with Godfrey, and they developed a life algorithm together, but they're falling out, and then Godfrey's now kind of running the Heavens Inc., and now Damien out of spite created the Hell HQ. And so it's about having this balance, but he hates his job, and it's literally a hell of his own creation, but he's accountable to a board who won't let him out of his contract. And so it's where it comes from, and this is why it's very personal to me, is I've been in a few situations, personal and professional, where I've been so angry with other people for putting me or keeping me in a position that I didn't like, but it's really taking accountability for what's in my control and kind of seeing where I was wrong or how I was a monster in their eyes, and really kind of being honest about it. And I know I mentioned it in the pitch document, but I did a little bit of drawing that designed this character of it's called Damien. And I sent it to my brother, and I was like, what do you think? And he goes, are you drawing yourself? And I looked at it again, and I saw this kind of tall, skinny guy with wearing a cardigan, matching socks. And I was like, oh, that is so telling. But yeah, he's got like horns that bend down because he's kind of a bit mopey. I'd say tonally it's probably where BoJack Horseman and Curb Your Enthusiasm meet in the middle.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's the kind of thing I'm trying to, yeah. So that's what I'm working on.
So how long will it take from now for us to begin to see it? I want to see it right now.
I'm more happy to share. I'm happy to share the pitch document I sent, so you got something to read. I'd love your thoughts. I'm writing the pilot now, which is due in about a month. Once I do that, I've got representation in LA, and they can package the pilot with the pitch document, and they can start shopping it around and seeing who's interested in it. Yeah,
I think the world will be interested in that. It sounds wonderful.
It really sounds brilliant.
With Terry Pratchett on steroids. I love that it's so current.
I'm hoping to get that, because it's a fun one to write, because it is. I'm really kind of digging in a very personal place. It's kind of at an admission of all my shame. So it's great in terms of what makes it writing vulnerable. This is quite an embarrassing one to write. I mean, it's by all senses, it's how I see myself as the devil sometimes, and how I can kind of, instead of trying to find the external validation, how do you kind of find self-love in spite of, believing that everyone else hates you? And so, yeah, that's definitely different tonally.
Yeah.
A cute little 7-minute stop motion, but I'm also trying to develop something long form that's kind of in a similar space to Lost and Found, but completely different world and characters. And so that's the other thing I'm working on at the moment. And then obviously, I mean, as writers, it's constant pitching, and so waiting to hear back on a few things.
Wow. So with that one you were describing, the Damien and the devil, the heaven and hell one, do you know in the pitch process, do you have an ideal format that you want it to be, for example, a film or a TV series, or do you have to be open to what the market says they want?
So this is actually something I'm experiencing with that crochet kind of project that I'm working on as well, because I've just had feedback from my agent saying she really likes it, but it's more likely that I would have to change the format. So I think when I jump into a project, I think all writers, you kind of, when you're writing, you can kind of see it and you start building attachments to how it's going to be made or how it's going to be produced, whether it's a book or it's a film, a series, a radio play. But I think it's tricky to kind of be too married to that because we're working for clients, buying a ticket. And so it's really the industry that's going to be saying what it needs to be. So I would love for Damien to be kind of a half-hour series on Netflix. That's the kind of big idea that I'm kind of excited about. But if the way to get it made and the way to keep writing stories within this world is a mini-series or a feature film, I'd obviously be open to that, because
you just have to go with it.
Because, to an extent, I think, at least.
Okay. It's interesting. Yeah. So you use the word client then, so you almost see it like you've got the creative concept and you need someone to pick it up and work with you on it. So you've got to almost have that client relationship. That's really interesting thinking about it that way.
Yeah, which makes me feel like such a cop out in a way. But I remember the first one of the first lectures I had at film school. We were told, well, look, you can either be artists or you can be working practitioners. And it was kind of it was a really kind of big bombshell. But it was like, all right, I can't just go, this is what I love to write and this is amazing to me and I want everyone to watch it. Like if someone wants to watch it, they want the thing that they want.
Yeah.
And so it really is, I think thinking of it in terms of a client, you're selling a product, I think it's a really good way in terms of at least having a sustainable career in an industry like that.
That's a really good way to put it.
Yeah, it's probably the only way you can survive, really, I think, as a professional.
Yeah, and then you find your little loopholes in terms of how you can kind of find your artistic in and kind of keep it personal and everything. But I think it's, if you want people other than yourself to be able to watch it, you need to be able to kind of expand it and make it relatable and on a platform that people can get to. And obviously these different platforms have different, criteria for what they need and how they're going to get it across to their audience. And
I love that. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I remember being a little bit heartbroken when I found that out, but I think that's because I knew there was a bit of truth to it. You know what I mean? You kind of, you grow up thinking, I'm going to be the artist, and you're like, oh, no, you're just a businessman in a different trade. But it's a fun one, and so
but that's I think that's a really powerful way to look at it. And as you say, it obviously impacted you. And for a lot of our listeners who are pursuing creative hobbies or creative passions or creative lives, the reality is we all have bills to pay, for most of us anyway. We all have those realities. And I love that idea of artist or working practitioner. And hopefully there are moments where they can combine. I think that's actually really important. It's just reality, isn't it?
It's reality, but you can do both, because I don't want to sound all doom and gloom. I think it's like, because I wrote from a show for Channel 7, a cartoon called Kitty Is Not a Cat, which was really fun, but it's not the kind of material that my passion work is about. And so, but doing that buys me time to be able to work on a passion project that is Damien or another project, and finding that. I had
to look at Kitty Is Not a Cat, because my cat Jonah is a cartoon cat in creation. And the other thing is, there is I was going to write a book called I Am Not a Cat, based on Jonah, which was based on a Japanese writer in 1910 who wrote a book called I Am a Cat. And that was about an aristocratic. So you pipped me to the post on that one. But that's gone on the.
I hope you write that book.
That's gone on the Disney Channel, I saw.
Yes.
Your kitty is not a cat.
It's on like 65, on Disney Channel in 65 countries except like the UK and the US, which is where I really wanted to be seen. But it's,
except the centres of Western civilization, but that's okay. You got your work towards that.
But China is such a huge market now, isn't it, for media, for books, for films. So
exactly.
In some ways, it's probably great that you've novelled that. You know, yeah. And I don't know about you, but I love the Asian market. I think that they're a fascinating, very enthusiastic consumer of ideas.
Absolutely.
The more open countries.
And with animation specifically. I know there are a couple of animation summits there, and so I've got a special place in my heart for that region. I know I pitched a Lost and Found series at the Soul Promotion Plan a couple of years ago, and it won the grand prize. And so I think maybe that's why I'm a little bit biased, but I definitely kind of enjoyed, going to Seoul and seeing the industry there where I otherwise didn't even know, couldn't be confident if one even existed there, and it's huge. It's a really big market there.
Yeah, a creative hub, really, Asia now. Yeah. It's fascinating.
Yeah, there was obviously a theme with Japan in Lost and Found. Have you got a relationship with Japan, Bradley, or a particular interest in Japanese culture? Or
yeah, it's strange because I've gotten like a little bit of an obsession with Japanese philosophy and culture, and I haven't ever visited Japan yet.
No way.
So in my master's class, I developed. Okay, so there's two ways I want to answer this, and the one is I developed two projects. One was Lost and Found, and the other one was a feature animation that was set in the Egypt period about a ninja. And I think all the research I was doing for that kind of started opening all these, these cultural books and philosophies, set in Japan, and the philosophy that I was really inspired by, which is what we named the company after, was Wabi Sabi, which is celebrating the transience of life and things that are beautiful when they're impermanent or imperfect.
Yes, which is very held dear in Japanese culture.
Yeah, and it really aligned with, like, not just my sensibilities as a viewer, but the kind of stuff I liked writing, my worldview, and so that really resonated with me. Sorry, what were you saying, Helen?
I was saying, I think I have a friend in Japan who is an academic who specialises in all of this kind of thing. I've got to introduce you to her.
Oh, please, please. I love discussing this kind of stuff because I feel like it's a large part of the reason why, as a middle class white guy, I can't complain. I've got a lot of privilege obviously, but I think there is a kind of a perpetual doom that faces us is because we kind of strive for perfection and we try and be the best. And there's something very beautiful in kind of surrendering to being something that's temporary. And I think you can find a lot of peace in that. And I think that's what inspired me to kind of keep digging into this kind of philosophy and learning about kintsugi, which is, joining the broken pottery with gold pigment in order to kind of celebrate what's broken about and what gives something
beauty. Okay, well, I can't wait for you to go.
I know. Well, I was actually hoping to go at the end of this year, but we'll see. I don't know if travel bans will be lifted by then, but I really wanted to do a research trip for my ninja story. But yeah, even
they will just love you over there.
Nice to go. I hope so. It'll be awkward if they don't. But yeah, and then the other side of setting it in Japan, because it was a very strange choice to kind of, because we got that question a lot, why is it set in a sushi
because it's
bar?
very noticeable, like it really stands out.
Yeah, so I mean, our art director did a fantastic job about really excavating those elements of wabi-sabi and putting them, you know, into like the timbers and making everything look weathered and loved and worn. But originally, I'm not sure if you remember when I mentioned at the beginning of the talk that it was originally set in an alleyway.
Yes.
So we've had a budget cut. In the master's program, you get a certain amount of money to be able to either make like a sample of the project that you're pitching or something bigger, and the budget was cut. There's I think under when Tony Abbott was still Prime Minister, and there was a huge cut to the arts and Australian Film, TV and Radio Schools, the government schools, so we got hit directly. And so we kind of had to kind of pivot what our project was. And so instead of doing kind of concept art for this story, I thought, oh, you know what, if I've got a script and we've got concept art, why can't we just make like a picture storybook, which we did make. I've actually got it here.
Oh, cool.
I'll show you after the interview. But, so we had a picture storybook, but then I was thinking, oh, well, it's going to be a very short picture storybook if it's just kind of like this very simple story. And then I was going through my bucket of like, I call it my seed bucket, which is just kind of like one-liners and things that kind of seem to tie into the same themes. And one was directly set in a sushi bar, which was about this introverted sushi in a bubble who fills him up with like a shrimp as he's going around and around the sushi train.
Introverted
and it's all about
sushi.
kind of escaping your comfort zone to kind of, well, I was doing more research. It was like, oh, he's more of a hikikomori shut-in, which is that kind of, those people in Japan that are so afraid to leave their apartment that they manage to find ways of just never leaving, whether it's food delivered at the door, whether it's like a system of cleaning things. And so reading about that, and it's about a fear of the world and what can happen if you leave. And so this was a story about this little sushi that in order to kind of enjoy anything, you kind of needed to, you know, expose yourself to danger. A very Dory mentality, I suppose. Where it's like when she says to Marlon, if you never let anything to happen to him, nothing's going to happen to him. And then the other story, which was about two bonsai trees where over 100 years they've kind of become intertwined and one begins to die and uproot. And so this other tree has to unwrap all these branches before he's uprooted as well.
Oh, they're all so beautiful.
And every branch is another memory. And so I figured, okay, those two stories feel like the beginning and the end of love. And if Lost and Found is something about the relationship, the middle of it, we can tell this story as a trilogy using different characters about what it's like to experience love. And it was like, okay, well then it just makes sense to kind of set these dolls, instead of these crochet dolls, make them amigurumi dolls, set it in the same sushi bar. And then we kind of what we're trying to do is like, all right, let's try and tell a haiku as a visual medium.
Yeah, so you really have a lot of affinity with Japanese culture. It seems like there'll be more Japanese themed stories to come from you.
Absolutely. I think it's going to be inherent in all my work, even if I'm setting one in Australia now, and I had to kind of put in the pitch document, like even though it's set in Australia and it's got a lot of culture integrated, you know, with Australianisms, there's still a lot of Japanese philosophy in it. I think it influenced me a lot when I was doing that reading.
Well, Japan's fantastic. I went there. Yeah. I've lived there twice. I did Japanese all through school. I went to uni there. I've lived in Osaka. Oh, yeah. I've lived in Tokyo, and it is a fabulous, magical place. I felt it was the first place I ever went overseas. So for me, I'll never forget the feeling of, you know, the magic faraway tree I read as a child, this idea that you climb a tree and enter a magic land. That is exactly how I felt when I sat on my suitcase in a dark Japanese street, waiting to sort of get let into my dorm, and I just looked at the sky and went, okay, the sky looks familiar, that's cool. Everything else just seemed so different, and I was like, wow. That next morning, like walking through my local area was like, oh my God, it's such a cool place. You will just love it.
And Bradley,
I'll have to pick your brains when I book my trip.
Yeah.
I think now more than ever we need some of those beautiful philosophies that you've been exploring, you know, impermanence. Like we think we're going to be locked inside forever at the moment. We're not, you know, it would be an imperfection. We just have to accept that we've got a bit crazy, don't you think?
I do. I think it's particularly in the film industry. I don't know too much about other industries, but it's a ladder that we're all trying to climb, and we feel like our lives won't be complete until we're at the top. And it's a very kind of unhappy way of living, and I still kind of battle with that a lot of the time. But it's kind of being okay with where you are and finding purpose in that. And so even now that we're being stuck inside, even if we are stuck inside, one, we're not going to be stuck inside forever, and it's being able to kind of be, you know, have that perspective. But if we are stuck inside forever, you know, it doesn't deteriorate from what we, you know, all those amazing experiences that we had before we were stuck inside, and being grateful for that, or all the amazing things that we can appreciate about kind of being stuck inside and kind of looking inward and figuring out what's actually important to you. Like I feel like what we're kind of experiencing now is a perfect, like, I mean, you already said it, but a perfect example about why wabi-sabi is such an important philosophy to remember, because it is making us realize that nothing is permanent, and everything that we saw, every plan that we made that we thought was secure was fleeting. And so it's really about, you know, living more in the now and being present and appreciating what's right in front of us, rather than trying to chase something ahead or trying to kind of reconcile something in the past. And
it's so true. And Helen we talk about this in various ways. Helen giggles at my list making, because I can get a bit too fastidious about I've got a huge list next to me here. It's so true what you just said. I think I'm the kind of personality that I tend to anchor myself in my future. I anchor myself in my vision of where I'm heading all the time. I can't do that right now, because every single future plan I had, whether it would be travel or how much money will I have in the bank at this month and what's happening with that, and it doesn't matter. All that matters is I'm home with my daughter, and at the moment we're doing the most incredibly difficult 1,000-piece puzzle. My kitten keeps jumping on the table and causing chaos, and those moments are it for me, and that's anchoring. That's actually a much healthier anchor. And it's funny you brought up, I didn't catch the phrase, but that Japanese lifestyle choice of being massively like isolated. It's funny how that is what we're all wrestling with, and yet there has been people living like that and wanting to live like that. Like that's a lifestyle choice for some people. It's interesting.
Hikikomori.
And you know, historically, I think there have always been people, lighthouse keepers, stamp collectors. There have always been introverts who've been very comfortable in these.
This is just the world's frozen and just gives us a chance to catch up for a little bit.
Yeah, and time. Have you guys found that time is getting for me, it's getting all soupy and like a slime ball. You know, it's changing. Sometimes I think, was it only 2 weeks ago? It was my daughter's birthday. It's like, and then Stella seems so long ago, and it's like, I'm being given the gift of time. I'm always complaining that I don't have time. Now I have time. So it's really interesting in that way. Yeah. Definitely.
But how wonderful creativity hasn't been sent into a spiral the way some of my friends have. You know, people have responded differently to it.
Yeah. They certainly have.
In a way, it's kind of, I don't know how counterintuitive it is what I'm doing, because there was an interesting article where it's like it seems like everyone's now has this fear that they've got a certain amount of time and they need to be as productive as possible, but they saying you don't know what the world's going to look like on the other side of this, and so it's actually a time to just slow down. But I'm totally on the side where I'm just like, no, this is my chance to catch up. I'm not going to get another chance like this again.
So are you being quite productive?
I'm being productive, but it's I would suppose anti-wabi-sabi. That's the way of practice that I'm still trying to figure out how to implement into my own life. But it's, I definitely feel that, you know, that urge to kind of continue generating material so I can feel a sense of security, I guess.
Have you had to develop any new habits? Oh, sorry, you go, Helen.
No, I was going to say all of these stories that you're talking about are truly universal, and they're based on deep philosophy. And so no matter what kind of world we step out into after this, these stories are still going to be relevant.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're right, yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. But I suppose I don't know. It's hard to tell if, you know, if there will be theatres on the other side of this, or if it's all going to be streaming. It's one of those things. It's like no one. We
don't know.
It's like there've been events that have been postponed instead of cancelled. You know, like film festivals. Like, oh no, we'll go on in August. I'm just like, you don't know that. No one knows that. Now I feel, you know, we're just going to get another email just before August to say, okay, no, it's cancelled. It's one of those things that we don't know. Until we have a vaccine, we won't know how long it's going to last.
Fascinating, isn't it? It's very. I'm so grateful to be alive at this time and experience this, because I don't think there's ever been anything quite like it.
Exactly,
I mean, we've had the plague, but at least this time we've got technology.
Yeah,
and on the other one, we're so equipped to be able to deal with it as opposed to, you know, 5-10 years ago. But hopefully it's a long-lasting effect. But I feel like a lot of people are going to be, at the other end of this, when people hug, the hugs are going to be a little bit deeper. Like, I feel like there's going to be a lot of appreciation for things that we took for granted. I think the effects of that might last a couple of weeks, but those 2 weeks will be amazing with everyone going out and really.
Because that has made us all focus on what's important in life. And when you actually work, it's actually a very few things. It's family, friends, you know, it's not a lot of,
family, friends, hobbies. I just noticed we got the same bottle.
Oh yeah, is that from Clover?
Yeah.
Oh, from the festival. Of course we do.
And Bradley, so cool. I'm wearing Dinosaur earrings. I don't know.
I noticed. I didn't want to interrupt. I love them. I didn't want to interrupt. And you got your Andy Warhol t-shirt on.
I know.
Oh, you can see that.
She's a rock star, Helen.
Yeah.
One last question, Bradley, before we wind up, and I've got to say hi to you from Sarah, by the way, because I messaged her and said that I was interviewing you, Sarah from Stella, and she said, that she hopes you're staying well and still punning like a king. I didn't know you were a pun king.
Yeah, no, we're having a pun battle about toilet paper the other day on Instagram. Yeah.
Oh, good. But I was going to ask, like, just as we were winding up about Corona, like, do you think how has it changed you? Can you witness any changes in either the way you're thinking? Have you had to create any new habits or things how has it changed you so far?
So far, I suppose I go grocery shopping once a week instead of, you know, like getting little bits and pieces. That's it. It really hasn't affected me too much. Like my writing habit, I usually wake up, go to a cafe, come home, go to another cafe or a library. So a tricky adjustment has been, okay, how do I kind of stay focused and motivated, only working from the place that I'm used to relaxing at? And that's kind of a tricky thing to compartmentalize. But I'm lucky that my partner and I have a 1-bedroom place, and we've converted the second bedroom. It's a 2-bedroom place, and the second bedroom, which is kind of a half bedroom, we've kind of completed into like a study where I can kind of be excited to come here and focus. So that's it. But how are you guys holding up with it all?
Oh, I'm quite liking it, actually. I've set up this routine. Most weekdays I read to my cat, Jonah, on Facebook, and people
so good.
As a joke.
That's so
but now I get people messaging me if I forget a day or do something else. So people are quite hooked on that. And, you know, maybe there's something in an old woman reading to her cat. Who knows?
I'd make a beautiful
It's not
book.
talking about
It's beautiful. I love it. It's so therapeutic. And it's just, I was trying to explain it to Helen. It's nostalgic or it's calming. And I was saying to her, how often does someone read to you when you're an adult? You don't get read to. It's very comforting. I've loved it. And I just love watching Jonah. It looks like he's listening. It's just really cute. Yeah. But I mean, look, I'm an extrovert.
That's been a kind of anchor.
Yeah, you said you're an introvert, so it's easy for you. Like, I'm quite extroverted. So for me, I was very like, and I had immediate impacts on my business, which was quite stressful. But now that things have settled, I've had to create routine. And part of that has been connecting socially with people. And once I've done that, then I've felt better. And now I feel very creatively stimulated. Like, I'm fascinated by what's going on, but I'm also sensitive. I feel sad when I watch the news. I feel awful for people who've lost their jobs and stuff. So it's hard. I have to monitor how much sad stories I let in. Otherwise I get sad.
You can really get sucked in that vortex.
Yeah, you can kind of, the news cycle's always there for you. If you want to, you can focus on all of it. But yeah, like you, I think I'm sort of fascinated to see how the world's going to change. I don't think it'll ever really in some ways be the same, and I'm just fascinated to see that.
I just want to know
that bicycle metaphor that my psychologist had told me about.
Yeah, it won't quite be the same.
You disassemble something so many times that you can't really figure out how to put it back together.
Yeah, and will it be a better bike? Maybe what you'll create will be more efficient or more fair. Or I'm interested in all of that.
People working from home.
Yeah.
And we're going right back to the themes of Lost and Found. I mean, that is so current. I would, fully recommend people to watch that, because it's the same thing. Something's broken, isn't it? And we don't know what's going to be in the future. Does the dinosaur get made again? Or if it does it have 4 legs, 5 legs?
Yeah, I think it's not trying to kind of recreate something that was because you miss it. About taking what you learned from that and making something new, or learning to leave it behind and take what you grew from it to move on.
Oh, so you guys are great. You're both philosophers.
Love it.
I just feel my philosophy.
Oh, I love it. You two are gorgeous. Just so our listeners know as well. So Helen and Bradley haven't met before, but one of the reasons one of the things that came up when I spoke to Bradley at Stella was I talked about Helen's children's book version of her story, Cleo and Rob. And Bradley was so interested in it. I said, I'll give you a copy. So how lovely that this is kind of the first time they're meeting, but Bradley's actually seen Cleo and Rob. Tell us what you thought of it, Bradley, because I know you said you were really taken by it.
My partner's a preschool teacher, so when we have a picture storybook, we have story time here, which is because she's taken the year off, so it's a nice little thing to do, and we're both tearing up on page 4. It was such a beautifully told story about loss that was kind of palatable for a much younger audience. There were metaphors in there. I think that there are 2 moments that kind of I can't get out of my head, and the one is the yarn, using a bloodstream as yarn, which I thought was such a beautiful way that a child could understand, or just not understand what's happening, but illustrating that gap in terms of not understanding quite what's happening. And the other moment that absolutely broke my heart was the accident happening because Rob was trying to rescue someone. Oh, no, not Rob. Sorry, Sam was trying to rescue someone. And it's just an incredibly sad story that's told in such a simple, beautiful way. It's an absolutely beautiful piece of work, and the artwork as well is such a I don't know I've forgotten who your artist was,
Phoebe.
but the use of tassels,
Phoebe Morris.
The combination of text and the aesthetic just really blend into this kind of nostalgic, sentimental kind of piece that I obviously love things that are sentimental and things that are very simple, and I think you've taken a really complex emotion of grieving and told it in a very minimalist way. That's really, very chewable for anyone. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Bradley. Thank
No,
you.
my pleasure. Thank you for writing it.
Oh.
Yeah, I can imagine it would be incredibly hard to kind of, we're talking about, writing from a place of vulnerability. And I can't imagine anything more difficult taking, reaching into a place of pain like that and being able to kind of express it to other people can kind of take comfort in knowing that they're not the only one going through loss, which is, it's a shared experience. It's why we tell stories.
And that's the benefit. The distance of time has made it possible for me to do that, and the knowledge that there are people out there going through much harsher grief right now. And when it happened to me, I really badly wanted people to assure me life wasn't over, and I suppose that's part of the reason I have written about it. And with this children's book, it's to try and help kids understand loss of a friend or a sibling, because that's been such a taboo.
And it's so important for them to understand, and I've never understood why it was taboo. I used to work in childcare. That was my background. I used to work full-time in childcare, and I couldn't understand why children's content was so sugar-coated. And I think it explains why I resonated with your work so much, Helen, and why I'm writing the stuff that I'm trying to write. I know Inside Out came out, which is all about exploring the value of sadness and what its purpose is. And I was so excited to tell my sister about it. She's got a kid with Asperger's, and my sister's she's a beautiful woman who's very positive and trying to make everyone happy. But I know that, that you can't kind of just switch it on like a light switch. And so I was so excited to tell her about the story and to tell her, please go take the kids to see it. And her response was so telling. She goes, no, I don't want to take them. Apparently it's sad. And I thought, isn't that perfect? We're not just, saying, we like blocking.
Yeah, or avoiding.
But even the feeling, it's like, well, no, we don't want to be sad. Sad's a bad thing. We're going to put a taboo on it. That's something that's not to be ashamed of. I know, like, I'm very open about seeing a psychologist, which my own mum, bless her, she was always like, no one needs to know you're seeing a psychologist. And I remember when she says that kind of thing, it's like, oh, it's just something that, should be shameful about it, or if it is, should I be embarrassed? And you start feeling, like, oh, that must be a secret then. And then if there's a secret, there must be a reason why I need to be keeping it a secret. So I think the more open we are to kids about their emotions and kind of telling them, no, these are,
healthy.
You're going to experience happy things, and you're also going to be experiencing sad things. But it's going to be so much healthier if you know how to deal with all of them, and there's no age restriction for when you deal with grief or when you deal with elation. And they're so emotionally intelligent. I'll just finish up this thought here. What I found was that they were totally on board the same kind of, emotions and experiences that I was kind of experiencing. They just weren't able to, they didn't have the tools or the language to articulate it properly. But it's totally understood. And I showed Lost and Found to 7-year-olds or 6-year-olds who are able to relate it. They haven't experienced loss in terms of a family member or friend, but they know what it's like to lose their cherished toy or something. And they can, we've had messages from parents saying, can you take a photo of the dolls for us to make sure they're okay? Because our 5-year-old, still really sad in bed. And I was like, okay, if they can kind of understand that emotion and resonate with the character,
wonderful,
then it's a really powerful tool for them to, open a conversation with them and their parents about understanding what it's like to not say, to be able to say goodbye to something and not taking that for granted. And I'm sure you had the same effect with Cleo and Rob, and the effect that it had on kids when you released that as a kids book too, Helen.
Yeah. Kids are so often underestimated, their emotional intelligence, and I think it's really important to tell sad stories so that who is protected from sadness and loss? No. So that when it happens to a child, as long as they know that that you're not going to be sad forever, that there is hope, then the story is worth telling. And I think, you know, your film tells that story too, that there is hope. The fox might knit the dinosaur back together.
But it's all, I suppose, more broadly, the fox will find happiness again, whether or not, you know, whether it's with the dinosaur or whether it's with someone else or whether it's, you know, just with her.
That's true. That's a good way to look at it. I like that interpretation. Well, listen, you two, I'm going to play our outro music. We're going to wrap up, but it's so lovely to witness you two getting to know each other. Can we do it in real life when we're allowed to, please? In a bar, maybe?
Yeah, when we're allowed to hang out, I'd love to.
That would be great.
That would be so great.
Thank you so much, Bradley. It's been wonderful.
We've loved it.
Thanks for the great questions as well.
Good. Thank you. Well, we'll leave it there and we'll speak to everyone next time. And thanks for listening.